Hi guys, Jackie M. How you doing? Just sharing this out to my group as usual. So 2 seconds, say hello. Let me know who you are, where you're watching from, and I will talk to you in 2 seconds. And of course, there's always a lag as to. Okay, here we go. Cool, cool, cool. Here we go. Share to a group. Jackie M's Malaysian Street Food Kitchen, day 8. All right, guys, thanks again for joining me. This is Jackie M, and I am on day 8 of 30 days of a Go Live 30 challenge that was run by Paul Gray of the ACG method. And I am covering the topic, as usual, on 30 Malaysian cooking tips, right? So again, day 8, and today we're going to talk about all these different types of starches. I don't know how much you use starches for. And by the way, if you follow my content online and whatever, if I know that there's technically a difference allegedly between what's known as corn flour and cornstarch and tapioca flour and tapioca starch, but I always use them interchangeably. Well, for the longest time I have. Okay, so if you see an old blog post by me that reference corn flour, I actually mean cornstarch. Okay, because I almost certainly use these kinds of flours for their starchy properties, right? And which is as a thickening agent, and also for other stuff as well, like to drench stuff in flour before I flash fry them, or to add to, like, say when I make fish paste or something like that, to help bind it all together. So what's the point of all these different types of starches? That, like I said, obviously the common denominator is that they're starchy. Okay, so why do you need starch in your cooking? If you're cooking the kind of food that I do, a lot of the time you want to thicken up the sauces. Okay, so a lot of, hey Rose, how you doing? So a lot of the kind of like Chinese style dishes, like stir fries or noodle dishes with sauce and all that, you would finish it off with something to thicken up the sauce with, or the soup with, and all that. And for the longest time when I had my restaurants, I would use tapioca starch, right? Hey Linda, how you doing? Hey Paul. And tapioca starch, like I said, I've always used it just kind of like it's something that was carried over from how my stepmom did her cooking and all that. So we always use tapioca starch as a thickening agent, as something to kind of soak up some of the wetness. Like if you're trying to deep fry something and you want to toss in a little bit of flour, the starches are what's great for that, because they help to kind of create, they soak up the excess moisture, and then which means when you throw them in the oil, they don't splatter too much. Okay, but primarily I would use it to thicken up sauces, and primarily I'm thinking of something like wat tan ho, which if you're Chinese or you're Malaysian, you will know is that saucy noodle dish, what also in Malay is called like kway teow siram. Is similar. There are like a lot of crossovers between Malaysian and Chinese cuisine to some extent, right? So when I had my restaurant, I used to sell wat tan ho, again, which is a fried rice noodles, fresh rice noodles, served with a gooey, eggy, silken egg sauce. Okay, what we call silken egg sauce, and the sauce was thickened with tapioca starch. Okay, but more lately I've experimented with the difference between tapioca starch, which a lot of Westerners don't necessarily instinctively think to buy. All right, I don't think it's actually really that easily available at your local Western supermarket. Most Westerners are more familiar with cornstarch. Okay, so I decided to run some tests and figure out the difference between cornstarch and tapioca starch, and also potato starch. Potato starch, now I see it all the time at Asian grocery stores, the ones that especially supply to big Chinese restaurants. Okay, and I've always been a little bit reticent about buying potato starch, because it actually literally costs about 4 or 5 times the price of the same amount of tapioca starch, okay? And I was thinking, why would I pay 5 times more for potato starch when tapioca starch basically does the same thing? But like I said, I finally sat down and experimented with all these 3 different starches just to figure out the difference, okay? And this is what I found, okay? Now, tapioca starch, when I used to make watanho for my business, if you cooked it up and you served it up, it was fine, okay? But the problem occurs when you want to make some to take away, right? Or when you make some for yourself, right? Remember, it's the silken egg sauce noodles, right? Whether it goes with fresh rice noodles, which is what watanho is, or whether you use it for crispy egg noodles or something like that. Once it cooled down, like if you get some to take away, someone buys it from you, take away, and they don't eat it right away, they reheat it in the microwave later on or the next day, the sauce lost a lot of its starchiness, okay? So that was the one problem I found with using tapioca starch. Remember, tapioca starch is the cheap variety. And then, like I said, I decided to try out cornstarch. And for the longest time, every time people ask me, oh, I don't have tapioca starch, if but your recipe calls for tapioca starch, can I use cornstarch? I always used to tell them, yeah, use that, but use a little bit more, because I'm pretty sure cornstarch is less starchy than tapioca starch, okay? That turned out to be wrong. When I ran my test, it turned out that cornstarch is actually more starchy than tapioca starch. All right, but the downside with using cornstarch is that it makes your food look foggy. Okay, so you got to think about it. Depending on how you use it, you can pretty much use it interchangeably. But if you're using it to thicken up a sauce, like in a Chinese dish or in a soup or something like that, just keep in mind your sauce will look like a foggy hue, okay, as opposed to tapioca starch, which gives it a clearer kind of like starchiness, okay? And also, like I said, it is more starchy. And also the other thing is, like, when you reheat cornstarch, a sauce that's been thickened with cornstarch, when you reheat it, it does not reheat evenly. Like, it seems to produce these little spongy lumps, if you know what I mean, in your sauce. Okay, so again, it's adequate. It's not a big deal if you don't care about your sauce looking a little bit foggy, and it's not a big deal if you're eating it right away. Okay, so I splurged out on a pack of potato starch. Like I said, potato starch, my Asian grocery supplier, because I buy from a supplier who supplies all the restaurants. He said all the big Chinese restaurants, they use this for thickening their sauces. Okay, so I tried it, and you know what? It's fantastic. First of all, it's a lot starchier. Well, it's starchier than like tapioca starch, so you don't have to use so much. Okay. Second of all, it doesn't fog up your sauce the way cornstarch does. Okay. So it looks beautifully like crystal clear but starchy. Okay. So it makes your food look more expensive. You know what I mean? So if you go to those big Chinese banquet type restaurants, right, and you eat food, it's invariably potato starch they use, because it does kind of like really make your food look like beautifully glistening, like and like, kind of like a nice clear color. And finally, the most important thing is that, like, when you reheat your food that's been thickened with potato starch, it stays like starchy. Okay, so it holds its starchiness much better. Now, there are other things that you want to like consider insofar as like the temperature at which you can heat it up to. Okay, because I run a Malaysian coaching online program. You can find out more at walkaroundasia.com. And some of the students have said that, like, they're not sure how hot to heat up your food before you add your tapioca starch mixture. And by the way, you don't use it straight, okay? So if you're using it to thicken up any sauce or soup or whatever, you have to add some water to it, mix it up, okay? And then you pour it in gradually and stir it in, okay? So there is a cutoff point at which that if you boil it like relentlessly, it's going to lose its starchiness as well. Okay, so that's just something that you got to play around with a little bit. But The way I cook, I've never gotten to the point where that has actually happened, okay? But the point is that starch, you add it towards the end of your cooking process. You don't add it in 30 minutes before and boil it and boil it and boil it, because there's a very strong chance. And again, like different starches will behave a little bit differently, but there is a strong chance that in the process of boiling it relentlessly, it's going to lose its starchiness, okay? So that's just something to keep in mind. So again, just to recap, tapioca starch, the most commonly, well, it's the most common in my pantry. That's the one I was using for years and years in my restaurant, right? Cornstarch, you know, you can use that, and you know, you can pretty much interchange all these different starches for a lot of your kitchen tasks, okay? Cornstarch makes your food foggy. It is a little bit starchier, but when you reheat it, it does kind of like have these like little lumpy, like spongy bits in it, if you know what I mean, okay? Tapioca starch, when you reheat it, it loses a lot of its starchiness. Potato starch, if you care to pay like 4 times more what it costs tapioca starch, then I would suggest going with potato starch. You'll use less of it. Your food will look much, much nicer. It will look beautiful, clear, and starchy, and it will hold its starchiness as well, okay? So I hope this is helpful. Just a quick little lesson for the day. And don't forget to tune in again tomorrow for day number 9 for my Malaysian cooking tips. I'll see you guys. Ciao.